Uh, so the way we do this is I'll say, I am William, and I am on the product marketing team at GitLab, and I'm chatting with Jen.
I am on the, I'm the customer reference manager for peer reviews, also on the marketing team, product marketing, I think.
Also a part of the product marketing group. And how long have you been at GitLab, Jen?
This is my 4th day.
Day 4. So we're just chatting about Git, using GitLab, working through your onboarding issues. And we thought, hey, we should just record this for YouTube. So this is our conversation. So it sounded like the challenge you were having are, there's this kind of section of the onboarding, and it sounds like it's basically learn Git.
Yes.
But it doesn't necessarily have like a project for you to work on. It sounds like it's just kind of telling you like, these are concepts that you should familiarize yourself with, but there's not like a project you're trying to make happen.
Yeah, it just talks about, here, this is what Git is, and it sends you to this link. The first link says, by now you should really understand Git, which I don't. So that was fun. And then it takes you through and it tells you to make sure you have Git on your computer and to run a command to do that. And I spent about 15 minutes trying to figure out how to open a command on my MacBook because I'm not familiar with MacBooks. So I Googled that and figured it out. And then it was trying to tell me how to sort of run some Git code on the terminal, which is the command prompt in Mac, I guess. And that is where I got confused because I thought I was supposed to be doing it in GitLab, which is why I reached out to you because I don't know how the computer terminal command prompt relates to GitLab.
That is an awesome question. This is why we're recording, because I can guarantee you a ton of people have that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like we were chatting earlier. This is how software engineers work every day. And every software engineer had to learn this at some point. And so at GitLab, everybody, regardless of the role, even if they're like finance or sales, gets to learn like a little bit of software engineering. And even that little bit is very complex and can be intimidating and takes some time to learn. So this kind of concept, like what's on my local machine in my terminal window on the command line, and what is on Git and how do those relate? So this is part of the magic of Git, and this is Git is a thing. It's called a version control system. And that's what GitLab uses as its version control, right? So GitLab is this like bigger tool that does a bunch of stuff. And it uses Git. And so the Git part of GitLab is, we were talking earlier about how you have a branch and it has all these changes and you can make other branches. And then within that model, you also have this concept of the remote branch and a local branch. So the way it works is you can actually start in either place. I like to start it on GitLab. And I wonder if we can even, I might even just screen share. And let me see if this.
And is starting on GitLab the remote branch?
Yeah, exactly. So if we just go to, let's go to the GitLab handbook. And, let's just go to, let's say, product marketing. I bet it's probably even. I don't know. Let's make an update somewhere. It doesn't even matter what update we're making. I won't merge it. But so every page here has this really nice, if you scroll to the bottom, edit this page. And have you seen that one?
No, where are you? I can't
see.
See.
On any page on the website or in the handbook, any page at about.gitlab.com, and actually this is true of our docs as well. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, there's an awesome little link that says edit this page.
Yes.
And it's cool because literally anybody in the world can do this, not just GitLabbers. Like,
that opens a merge request.
yeah, so that'll open this file, and it looks like I was actually the last person to change it. So what's cool is like this is the file that builds like this web page, right? So this is what it looks like when it's all nicely styled. And like live on the website, this is pulling from the web server. And when I go to this edit this page link, now maybe, let's see, can I go there? It's maybe my network is just a little slower. I confused it. So when it pops up in a moment, what I'm actually opening up is the Git repository on GitLab.com. And
after you click on edit this page, it opens up the Git repository.
That's right. So basically it goes to the code. Like what's the code that generated this page? And in this case, it's showing me a nice like preview because it's on like the display a rendered file. But if I click on this to display the source, and this is a little bit sluggish today. So this is not normally, it's normally speedier. Yeah, potentially.
Oh, it's Murphy's Law.
That is true. So this is the source code of that page, and it's in. I was talking to you earlier about Markdown.
Yeah.
But also, this probably looks familiar as well, right?
Yeah.
So inside of Markdown, you can actually also embed HTML.
Yeah.
So this is the file. This is the code. You can think of it as code. It's Markdown, and it's basically real. What do you call it? It's text without formatting, and the thing that you call that is now slipping. Plain text is a plain text file. And so I'm going to go here to edit this file. And so now I'm in GitLab. I'm in the GitLab app, and GitLab is going to let me edit this file. And now I'm going to say product marketing at GitLab is really cool, right? And so I have some options now with this edit. So I can have a commit message. And if you remember, each change is its own commit. So what's usually good to say here is to talk about like, what did I change or why did I make this change? Later on, when you're looking at the log of all the changes, if you want to go back to one, it's helpful to just look at all those commit messages and see why it changed. If all the commit messages say like updated index, it's hard to know. So this I'm going to call like make the page cooler, right? And then it's going to have a target branch. And this is a really awesome part of GitLab is what it does is when I commit this change, it's going to create a separate Git branch for me. It's going to commit this change to the end of that new branch. And it's going to automatically make a merge request to merge that new branch back into master. So that's kind of what's happening here, where I'm saying like, start a new branch and call this one patch 19786 and start a merge request with these changes. So I'm going to commit the changes to this branch, and it's going to automatically start a merge request for me.
So the changes are committed on that branch, and it's creating a merge request that once it's completed will become part of the original tree. Right,
exactly, into the trunk of into the master branch. So it's telling me that branch already happens to exist. So I am going to just call this one cool PMM page. So I'm just, you can name these branches whatever you want. I like to make them descriptive.
Can anyone make these changes, or do you have to work at GitLab to do it?
So anybody in the world with a GitLab.com account can do everything I'm doing right now.
Basically, you have to work at GitLab. right?
No. Like that has an
Oh,
account on GitLab.com.
got it.
So like literally basically anyone in the world
So
can sign up
create
for
an account
GitLab and do
because you can
everything
get
I'm
a free
doing.
account. Got it.
Yeah. And so here are some, now we're going to start a new merge request. And the merge request has some elements. So there's a title, make the page cooler. And maybe sometimes I might have a description. In this case, I'm going to say like, you know, doing some onboarding with
J.L. Parker. J.L.
J.L. Parker.
There we
And
go.
so when I put your name in here, you're going to get a little ping from GitLab on that. And then honestly, when you make MRs, you usually don't need to worry about a lot of this stuff. You'll kind of learn it later.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the only thing you need to make an MR is the title. You don't need a description. You can basically assign it to Colin or your manager. Like, I'm happy to merge requests for you as well, but basically to start out, you can just always assign to Colin. And eventually you'll kind of figure out who
Why
owns
is
what
it
part.
Colin and not me?
So that's a really good question. So there's different workflows. This is kind of getting in the weeds a bit, but like, so potentially you might assign to yourself, and that's basically saying like, I'm working this right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're done with it and you want it to be merged,
Mm-hmm.
then you would assign to Colin.
Oh, because he needs to approve it.
Right. He would be the one to either merge it or to tell you who can merge it.
Okay. And does he go in and assign it higher?
Potentially. I don't know. Actually, I don't even know if he has merge access.
Oh.
But for example, like I have merge access to the website. So like, and a lot of people do, probably too many. So if you assign to anybody with merge access and they feel like they can approve that change. So sometimes people send things to me and I'm like, I can merge this, but I don't own this page. I need so-and-so's approval before I merge. And I'll do that kind of a thing. But basically, you just need a title in the MR. You're going to say delete the source branch and squash the commits. I won't go into the weeds about what these things do. I would just say I always check those boxes. That it's safe to basically just
get rid of all the extra stuff, and it makes makes everything merge into the one.
Right. It's kind of like when I merge, just clean stuff up.
Got it. Make the thing I made part of the master and get everything else gone.
Yeah. So I'm going to submit this merge request, and now it's going to open up the MR view. So this is a GitLab merge request. And honestly, this is one of the coolest things we have. Anyone who's a software developer that uses this kind of tool, and there are some other ones, there's like GitHub, there's Atlassian Bitbucket, like GitLabs is the best. Like if you're a software developer, this thing is so cool. So it shows you a few things. So first of all, it shows you the pipeline. And what this is doing is it's running a whole series of builds and tests on this change. So let's say, for example, the change I made, I just updated like a little bit of text, right? I changed it from this to this. And this is the view here. It shows you like, oh, this one's red. That's the one you got rid of. And this one's green. That's the one thing I'm adding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say, though, I did some kind of like syntax change, or I messed something up, and GitLab can't actually build it. Or I say GitLab. The software, it's actually something called Runner, is running these scripts. But if it breaks for some reason, then this thing will tell me. Right now it's running, but when it's done, it'll give you a green checkbox.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work for some reason, it'll give you a red X. So this is a nice part of GitLab, because in other tools, this like lives somewhere else, or it's not all like kind of integrated into one. So this is called the pipeline. That's
Mm-hmm.
like where it's compiling or building the code, and then running tests on it. And then it actually does a deployment. So it installs that code, and it installs it on a special server we call a review app. And a review app is basically like that change running in its own little web server. So when this is all done, we'll be able to see the version of the website that has just this change, if that makes sense.
Is that part of the continuous integration and
Exactly. This is CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment.
So what version are we looking at? Is this the free version, or are we using, as GitLabbers ourselves, are we using the free version or a premium version?
So as GitLabbers, our accounts have access to like the highest tier. So we actually have GitLab Ultimate features.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah. Anybody, actually, what's cool is anybody who opens up a free account, as long as their code is public, because like we want to support open source, they actually get access to all the highest tier as well. Oh. So the only time we lock down the features or make you pay for them is if you have like what we call private repositories.
Okay.
So you can see that there's some options here. This is a little helpful box, like who can approve this. We don't require approvals, but like some pieces of code and some companies do. Mm-hmm. And so what this is helpful is these are the code owners.
So Ashish, John Jeremiah,
Dan, yeah. And I'm on here too, but for any, which is weird, I showed up on the other page. I showed up as a code owner, but not on this one, which is totally cool. It might cap it at 3. The point is whenever you need help on a specific page, or you want to know who does this belong to, if it has a little code owners thing here, like those are people you can ping for this page. Cool. If I were to change the analyst relations page on the handbook, Collins and Joyce's picture shows up here.
Okay.
So the pipeline's running. I've got like, these are people who I could look at that might be able to help me out if I have questions about this. And then there's a few little buckets here. So here's like a place where we can have comments. I'm giving you like the full GitLab demo.
That's fine.
And then like you can respond to comments like, sounds good. So this is a way that we can like have a discussion asynchronously. Mm-hmm. So you don't need to call a meeting. All you have to do is make an MR and then tag someone and say like, hey, can you look at this? And then when they are done dropping off their kids or are back from like yoga practice, like they can respond to you.
So this is doing Git in GitLab. How does that relate then to the scary terminal on my computer?
Yes. So what this would look like is, let's say I wanted to change this locally. And let me see if I can orchestrate my windows such that I am not sharing too much. And let me see if I can, I'm going to do this. So let me see if I can share a portion of the screen.
You can.
And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to try to do this. And then I'm going to open up my terminal. And so this is my local shell, right? Mm-hmm. And or this has a few names. You can call it the terminal. That's the name of the Mac app. You can call it the shell because this is actually a shell. It's bash. It's a type of shell. People call it the command line. So all of those things: terminal, shell, command line.
Yeah.
For our intents and purposes, those are all roughly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, for example, I can click on this check out the branch, and it gives me these nice command line commands, right? So this is using the git command. It's then passing like the fetch modifier to the git command. And I'm saying like git fetch origin, right? So here on my local machine, I have cloned this branch locally, right? So essentially what I've done is taken that remote branch and I said, hey, I want to clone this. And this would be like a step you would do to get it onto your local machine.
And what does getting it on my local machine do? It takes it out of GitLab.com?
It makes a copy. It makes a clone.
Okay.
So I have here on my local machine, this is a copy of all of that code. So for example, if I open it up in my Atom editor, this is
What's
that?
What's an Atom editor?
So,
sorry.
Oh no, your questions are all good. Atom is what's called an IDE, or an integrated development environment.
Okay.
And so developers tend to work with a command line. I use Terminal or those other kinds of command lines. I just use the one that's built in. And then they're going to have some type of code editor to go and write and edit their code, also called an IDE. And that is what Atom is a type of IDE. There's other kinds. This is the one I like.
Okay.
So here you can see I have all of these files on my local machine. So if I'm not connected to the internet, I can still access the whole website and play and work with it.
But it would need to be, but if you're not connected to the internet, would it be the most recent website, or would it be whatever it is that you had just saved?
It's the, right. So I have a bunch of different branches locally. Mm-hmm. And so the thing I have locally is whatever was like the last time I got that. So for example, I could check out master. Mm-hmm. That's my way of saying like whatever branch I'm on, switch back over to the master branch.
So like that guy who had bad internet connection this morning at his hotel, he may have copied the code and worked on his machine locally to mess with the code so it could still work without worrying about the internet.
Exactly. You can, I've edited code on a train, spotty Wi-Fi. It's like not Wi-Fi.
Train. Sorry.
What's that?
I was making a joke. Let's move on.
And then the other reason to do it locally is it tends to be faster. Like once you get a grasp of all of these tools, which takes a lot of work and effort to do, but once you do that, then it's much faster to work locally. So that's the advantage. That's why it's good to like eventually set this stuff up. My recommendation is like, you probably don't even need this stuff for at least a month or longer. Like,
I was going to say a month. That seems fast.
Oh, okay. I'm talking in GitLab time. We make very, very small changes and we do them very rapidly. Mm-hmm. In fairness, so I tell this story at my last 2 jobs, in the amount of time it took me to ramp and be productive within 6 months.
Yeah.
Took me only 2 months at GitLab.
Really?
Yeah, that's like an honest.
My last job, it took me, I felt like it was like about 3 months to understand it and 6 months to be an expert. And I'm seeing all of this massive amounts of content and I'm like, how long is it going to take me to be an expert of GitLab? Because it's a lot. So
that's the cool thing is that in some ways you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to know all the stuff because it's all written down. Yes. Like in my last job, I had to figure out who knew that thing and I had to get their knowledge out of their head into mine. And it like took me 6 months to ramp. Yeah. At GitLab, everything was just written down. So I could just like, I wonder about thing X. Like what happens if I just do a Google search for GitLab handbook thing X? Oh, there's a page on that. Like amazing. I don't need to remember this stuff. Like I probably don't even need to bookmark it. Like I can just Google for it. Yeah, I've been putting everything in my pocket. It's just my pocket's just going to be the entire handbook, which is totally cool. I think that I had a, yeah, there's a few spots that I bookmark, but
Hmm.
there's things to learn. There's like technical knowledge and ways that you like. There's definitely ways to ramp.
Hmm.
I I would honestly say like you've never done software development before. I might even like if you wanted to learn this, like I want to learn to work on my local terminal. Like it's not super hard. It takes a little bit of dedicated effort. Um, and it's just like your mileage may vary. Like
Yeah.
for example, like our content team, like they do MRs all the time. Like every single blog post is a code change. So like very, very early on, like they put a lot of work in to like learn how to do this locally. And that made them more effective because they do that a lot.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and I mean, like I said, your mileage may vary. You could chat with Colin and Joyce and see how often they do stuff and if they work locally. Um, but my personal belief is I think you could be very productive rapidly using only the remote tools on GitLab.com. We've built a really cool thing. Like, so the other part of this is like back in the day, like the web tools didn't have all of this stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like the reason you worked locally was because you had to. But
Hmm.
GitLab has like a web IDE just built in. Like
Hmm.
that's pretty cool. So in GitLab, we've actually built everything that you need is actually built into GitLab. And honestly, I do want to check out the onboarding and
Yeah.
maybe
So
we'll
why did they
make
make me do the local first? It
uh,
seems
it's
confusing.
probably a legacy artifact of like once upon a time we didn't like years ago we didn't have a web ID and it wasn't awesome like it is
You
today.
know,
And
at my last job, I made them change the entire onboarding process too. So let's just change it.
you are already thinking like a GitLabber. Like literally like the best mindset you can have is this is not working. I'm going to propose a change.
I
And
think
that's
it would be easier to understand GitLab before understanding the big scary black box.
yeah,
Personally, as
yeah.
as a writing major and customer reference manager, non-coder.
You know what? So that makes sense. Like I have this local branch, and if I can make changes locally, and then I can sync it back to the remote branch.
Hmm.
So
How do
that's
you
why you use a git
process
command.
it?
So there's a git push and a git pull,
Oh, okay.
and a git fetch. So this is saying fetch. So I could actually do this, and I could like basically this is saying like go out to the remote repository and get me all the latest stuff. So all of the branches that have like latest like anybody's made that are hanging out that I don't have yet on my local machine, go and get all that metadata.
Fetch from just from wait, so fetching from just your machine or wait, I'm
This is sorry, this is my machine fetching, I should say, this is my machine fetching from GitLab.
okay, got it,
So like going out to GitLab, it said, give me all the latest stuff. And GitLab's like, here's all the latest stuff.
got
Now
it.
you have all the latest stuff. It's on your local machine.
Running an update.
And so that updated is very fast. You can see that Git is very fast. And now I'm going to check out that branch. So this is this cool PMM page branch. And now I'm working locally on the same thing that's in this MR, this cool PMM page branch. And if I make a change locally, which I can even do that. So if I like, I'm in Atom, and let's say I want to open up um, a file, which would be handbook, marketing, actually product marketing. There we go. So this is the file that I want. And it says GitLab is really cool, but I want to say bodaciously cool, right? I don't, spell check is choking on it. So now on my local machine, I can take that change to this file, going from really cool to bodaciously cool, and I can stage it. So in Git, uh, you have this concept of um, a batter on deck, or there's like a staging area. There's like the backstage. I'm ready to go out on stage, right? And so when you make changes and you save them, they end up in this little staging area. And then when you're saying like, yeah, those changes look good, I actually now want to commit them to the branch, then you stage. That's called staging the changes. Now here my change is staged. It's this change right here. And I'm going to commit it. And I'm going to say, making it totally tubular.
So the real question is, are you going to really allow all this stuff to go straight to the internet?
So now it's all still local, right? It's all still on my machine. So you can see here's a list of, here's the that log I was telling you about. You can see these are all the commit messages in the history. And so mine has make the page cooler and then make it totally tubular. That's on my local machine.
Okay.
The remote branch, if I look at the commits on the remote branch, it only has the make the page cooler.
Because it hasn't synced yet.
Right. So to sync it up, I'm going to push my changes from my local machine up to GitLab. And I could do this on the command line with a command called git push. Or in my IDE here, I can just say push.
And where in the command line, that's in the terminal thing?
That's right. So in the terminal, I could say, for example, git push.
Okay.
And that would also
go to GitLab and somehow pull it from.
That's right. So I did that when I used this git fetch and then git checkout.
Okay.
So on my terminal, I said git fetch. It went out to GitLab and it fetched the stuff.
No, I was wondering if you can somehow be on GitLab and then say, okay, now go to my terminal and get everything that I've updated, and I'll pull it back.
You can. That's okay. Sorry, I get like so excited about this. You can. So you can make a change.
So there's 2 ways. You can do it on the terminal in Atom or on GitLab. You can pull and push.
So I'm sorry. Maybe I misspoke. You can't go to GitLab and say, go and force a change out to all the local machines.
No, I meant find the information from my local machines and grab that code. Yeah,
you can't do that. What you need to do is like when you're on the local machine, you have to say, push this to remote or give me it from remote.
Got it.
You have to do that when you're on the local machine.
Got it.
So now you can see I pushed it. And if I do like a refresh here, now I have 2 commits, and that totally tubular is now on remote GitLab where I made that push.
Awesome.
So all that's to say is, I think what should happen is I should stop sharing, and I'm just going to like close this merge request. I'm not going to merge it.
Yeah.
It would be totally tubular to merge it, but
someone's going to go to the product marketing page and be like, what?
It'd be fun, but we also want it to be clear, so it might be confusing for people.
A little too much like Wikipedia. It's like, what am I reading right now?
So what I think we should do is I'll walk you through how to do this 100% on GitLab. No command line, no IDE required. You're going to use the GitLab WebIDE.
Okay.
And we're actually going to make an MR proposal to the onboarding template. And we're going to...
One of my first things on the job is to tell them to stop making me do the job they want me to do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That is totally the GitLab way.
Okay.
Like, I'm not even joking. Like, and the reason why is if you think about it like this, right? You're onboarding and you're new, and this is a process that's not working for you. In fact, the reason it's there is it's probably left over from a time when we didn't have a WebIDE, and it just was stuck in there. Mm-hmm. And everybody who's going through onboarding struggles with the same thing you do.
Yeah.
And so by you fixing it, you are globally optimizing for everybody.
And we have a YouTube video for proof.
Right, right. And so this is where the cool part of GitLab culture is because everyone is empowered to do this kind of like, hey, this thing's broken, I'm going to propose a change.
Okay.
And And what will happen is we're just gonna make the MR. So we're gonna send it over to the people group, and they might look at it and they might be like, well, there's actually these other reasons why we want to keep that in there.
Okay.
Or they might be like, you're totally right. This is like legacy. We should just kill it.
Okay.
So that's how we can have the discussion. So I'm going to stop sharing. I am going to let you share, and I will walk you through making an MR to the onboarding template to remove the learn Git stuff.
Oh my goodness. Well, or maybe just put it second. Maybe I can
stick it at the end, or we'll put it into like an optional bucket.
Maybe learn GitLab, then learn Git. Like maybe I learn the multisyllabic words after I learn how to speak basic English.
So the first thing we're going to do is just open up GitLab, or like you're logged into GitLab here.
So here's my onboarding issue.
Yep.
That's GitLab, right? So
that's right. So you are now on GitLab.com, and you are in the issues part, and we are going to go over to the code repository part, because the issues is for project planning, repo is for making changes, right?
Repository, what I'm hovering over right now.
That's right. And there's all this stuff in there, commits, branches, all that stuff. But if you just the main files view, this is all the files.
Yes.
And we are going to look for a specific file. So you can click on that find file, or even just hit the T key.
The T key?
Yeah, the T key. T opens up the fuzzy finder.
Oh, okay.
So this is going to say, okay, I'm looking for a file. And what are we going to call this? This is going to be onboarding. So if you type in onboarding, in fact, I even see it there. So you can see that inside of a issue templates folder, there is a file called onboarding.md. The MD stands for Markdown. So go ahead and click on that one there. And let's take a look at this template. And you can see the last change to it was even a day ago. And so here is here's the template, and let's just scroll down
to day 4.
To day 4, and yeah, if we click on that to expand it, here is the stuff. It says Git may be overwhelming at first. Don't hesitate to reach out to a more experienced GitLab team member, which is exactly what you did.
Yes.
And we host onboarding office hours. So let's just take a look at this. It has like, read this blog post about GitLab 101.
That was fun.
That was helpful. Okay.
That was fine. It made me feel reassured that I wasn't the only one who was going to be terrified.
So I think the one that we struggled with here is, it says become familiar with how GitLab works by watching the videos for Git newbies.
No, and then it was actually the videos were fine. We talked when I got to those, but then it was actually learning our GitLab basics took me into this terrible rabbit hole of adding my public key, creating a project to start using GitLab, but to create a public key, I had to go to my command line.
Gotcha.
So it was really, this was just the most confusing part.
Yep.
I don't know if necessarily it's terrible, because then the next part is learning our GitLab basics. Hold on, going back here. Then it starts talking about creating a project to start using GitLab, which is on GitLab, but it was the key, and then I had to start running, hold on, go to my command line, follow the instructions to generate my key pair. It was all this stuff. It was a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when I reached out to you. I was like, what does this have to do with GitLab? And that was where this all started.
Gotcha. So An SSH key is it's a cryptographic way to authenticate between two devices. So it's basically I have a private key that stays on my machine, and I give GitLab a public key. And then basically what happens is when I make requests, so when I do this git push, git pull, git fetch, when I'm going out to GitLab, GitLab is kind of asking, do I know who this is? Is this person allowed to pull this code?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the way that it knows is by checking my key. So I say, hey, I'm wchia at gitlab.com. Can I pull this code? And GitLab's like, are you really? Let me look at your credentials. Gotcha. And it's like, creds look good. Thumbs up. Here's the code. So that's what the key is for. Again, this is like only if you need to work remote, like work local, which I don't think you do. I think there's like there's reasons for it, but we have built so much cool stuff into GitLab. I think you could be productive without ever creating an SSH key.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe doing it after I learned GitLab's. It was just a very intimidating first mountain. It was like it was a lot to start with. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, now I kind of understand some GitLab basics. Mm-hmm. And eventually, I really want to do this local development. I want to create a key locally. I want to do this eventually. It's kind of a lot to digest on day 4 when I've never done software development.
It's what's it called? It's a barrier of entry. It's a big one.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at our onboarding issue there.
Am I on the right one?
Yeah, I think that's the yeah. So let's see. What is it all? So it says like become familiar with how GitLab works by learning our GitLab basics. Says download
GitLab basics. So it might actually be the handbook that's confusing.
This is our docs, our documentation page.
So it might not be the onboarding issue itself that's confusing. It's the GitLab basic. The very first basic is very confusing. If they could just make the SSH way at the bottom there.
Well, let's do this. Let's make a proposal. And let's say, hey, instead of dropping people into technical documentation intended for software developers who know what a public SSH key already is, right? Mm-hmm. Like, let's have for like the majority of folks a more appropriate intro.
Project.
So let's see. I'm just looking at that GitLab. There was that GitLab videos that it said to watch.
Yes.
Let's take a look at that page and see if there's a better video that so it says, so those ones are all about Git. So there's Git and then there's GitLab. And so into the GitLab, there's like intro to GitLab Flow.
Mm-hmm.
Let's, it's actually under the Git section as well. So what did you think about that intro to GitLab Flow video?
I've watched a lot of videos.
Let's pop it open.
I don't remember which one it was. Honestly, I'd have to rewatch it to tell you my thoughts on it. I watched a lot of videos today, so I'm sorry.
No, I think that's totally cool. This is like a 5-minute video.
I think it was just the one that is this the one that just talks about like the merge requests and like how they go through the process?
Makes branching and merging much easier than old versions of systems such as
it was fine. Yeah. This was the one that I was saying was
of a master branch.
Pretty theoretical. It wasn't like do this and do that. I think it was my primary criticism and a lot of people's criticism. Too much theory.
I think
a lot of people want more point and click training than free.
You know what? And this is a good critique. Is we probably what seems like what would help you is if there was a video that was like, all right, when you're starting out GitLab, like
point here, click here, do this.
Point here, click here, do this. Basically what I'm walking you through right now.
Yeah. This is what this is. This is what this is. When you click on this, this is what'll happen. We would love that. Yes, absolutely. My previous job was actually a training lead, and that would be great.
So let's see, is there any proposal or modification then you would make to the bullets there?
To the bullets there, add a video with training for just walking through.
Yeah, or let me ask this. So I would say if we need to generate net new content, we can make an issue for that and say, I think this content should be generated. Mm-hmm. If we're going to propose a change to the existing template, what we would say is there existing content that's better?
Well, I think there is, because when I was, but I don't know if you guys created it. So, but when I was, interviewing for the job, in order to understand what GitLab was, I wanted to see essentially what I'm going to call it a dashboard is. So I went and found like a 6 or 7 minute overview, and I saw it was some guy, and I think he was a customer, and he gave like a 7-minute breakdown of the merge requests and everything. So I had a general understanding. I didn't really have a user and end user understanding. But
if you had to track down that video, do you think you'd be able to find it again?
Probably. I'm pretty good at finding stuff on the internet.
Okay, because that sounds like a good video to add to this webpage.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like maybe under the new to GitLab or whatnot, maybe that sounds like it's a good video.
I don't know what version it was. I mean, because you guys, we update every 5 minutes.
Yeah, so. This is true. That is honestly, that's probably why there's not a here. Let me walk you through the interface. Mm-hmm. I've made several of those, and I know other people have too, and they keep going out of date really fast. But we
also do these training videos probably a lot, so it'd probably be relatively easy to just re-record.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's do this then. Over in the MR that we're making, because I was thinking to myself, let's actually do an MR right now.
Okay.
And so that's kind of in the next tab over. Yeah, that one.
I'm clicking on a computer, just wasn't reacting.
Oh, okay. So I would say to these steps, would you, are there any that you think are worth removing? Like just like this?
Not necessarily. I think the videos are fine. I honestly think it would be better if we had, it's honestly the links that we click through that need changing more than the onboarding issue itself. So adding a step-by-step click here video on the videos for Get Newbies would be great. Okay. Changing the steps on the GitLab basics. So the first thing I'm doing isn't creating an SSH key. Would be great, but the onboarding issue itself is okay.
Well, let's think about it this way. We can change those things as well, and there's a mechanism and a process to do that. But we're going to do an MVC. We're going to make like the smallest, tiniest change we can, and changing our docs or making a whole video is like a big change, right? Oh, yeah. Like reordering the docs and writing a whole new onboarding. That's like a big change. A small change might be like, so one small change that's really easy would be like, would this onboarding flow be better without this link?
Understood.
You know what I'm saying? Like assuming it's not going to change, at least for a day or a month, assuming everybody else who onboards tomorrow or who gets to this onboarding tomorrow is going to hit that link and have the same experience as you, would it be better to just take it away?
Oh, no, because I mean, we still have to create a project using GitLab, which I haven't even gotten to because I got to step 1 and freaked out and contacted you.
So here's the goofy part. I would say for you to be productive at your job, you don't ever need to create a SSH key.
Mm-hmm.
You probably will never need to create a project.
Oh, okay.
Every project that you use already exists. There's a high degree of that. There might be some edge case I'm not thinking of right now, but you don't need to create a project. You'll never need to create a group. You will create a branch, but the way that you will do it is how I just showed you, right? Mm-hmm. You'll do it in the context of like clicking on edit this page. You will never need to fork a project. Adding files to an issue will happen in the context of a merge request. Creating an issue, that's something you would do. But so here's my thought is, rather than having like this kind of docs page where there's kind of like a list of things that may or may not be understanding or cohesive, I would say in the onboarding, we should just have what the onboarding should be, right? So rather than going to the docs and seeing like, okay, I need to go create an issue now, but like, why am I creating an issue? Like, what's it for? It's probably going to be a lot easier to understand to say like, now that you've been onboarding, maybe you think there's an improvement to the onboarding. Create an issue and tell us how onboarding could be better, right? Because now you actually have an idea. Oh, okay. So now when you're going to create the issue, it's within the context of something.
Yeah, it is very out of context. You're just like, I don't know why I'm doing this or what I'm doing. And that was actually my first question. I was like, I don't know, like, what's this for? Like, I was doing it for no reason.
And I will say this, when in the onboarding do you get to adding yourself to the team page? Because you do actually do that in the onboarding.
It's supposed to be on day 3, but it's 5 o'clock my time. I'm pretty sure day 3 is going to, or day 4, I'm pretty sure it's going to be bleeding into day 5 because it's right here.
Gotcha.
GitLab team page, but I got held up on the whole. I mean, I had a few calls today, and then of course we've talked a good bit. So, well, I don't know if that's gonna happen today.
Yeah. So, this is my suggestion. Is I would say that there's no reason to send people to the docs. Without more context. So my recommendation would be either we suggest removing that line and say, hey, this is really confusing for people and they don't know what SSH key is and this was bogged me down. It'd be better to remove it, stick it in somewhere else. Or the other very, very small change we could make is we can change what this line says. So instead of saying like, become familiar with how GitLab works by learning our basics, that makes you think, I need to go check on this, and I need to do all of these things, which honestly you don't.
Okay.
We could say something like, visit the GitLab basics in the docs, and scan the items on the page to familiarize yourself with some of the things that you can find in the GitLab docs.
Yeah.
You don't need to read these all now, but knowing that they're there will be helpful if you want to get to them later.
Yeah, especially because if this onboarding is for more than just people like me who are not in the development world, then they might want to see that.
So let's make that change. So if you scroll up a little bit to the top, you'll see that there is an option to edit, like I think I showed you earlier, but there's also the option for the WebIDE.
Okay, I have to move my little screen share there.
Oh yeah, the Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So if you click on WebIDE,
And where do I blame you for this when I do it?
You're gonna say right in the description, you're gonna say like,
William Chia made me.
William Chia made me do this. It's his fault.
I'm new, don't fire me.
This is really, so this is very interesting to me because I'm like so used to how empowering GitLab culture is.
Yeah.
I've kind of forgotten that, like, at my last job, I kind of had this like, what do I change? Like, I don't want to step on toes, right?
Yeah. My last job, I had to like beg them to listen to the customers. Going live online. I'm going to stop.
At GitLab, have you seen our values page where it talks about short toes?
Yes, I have. I like that.
Yeah, so at GitLab, we have short toes. You really can't step on people's toes. So no one gets offended. In fact, people will probably thank you, saying like, wow, like you struggle with this. You are now helping everybody else who comes after you. You did a really cool thing.
Thanks.
Before we continue, I suspect that this will take us another 15 to 20 minutes. And I totally want to respect your time because I realize it's like after 5 your time.
That's fine. It's fine. I don't have to pick up my kids till like 6:30. So
okay, cool.
We're all good.
Cool. So let's find that line in the web IDE here. And you can kind of see it looks a little bit like my IDE. It has all the files on the side.
Yeah.
That's kind of the experience, but it's all just baked into GitLab. And something you can do is if you click on that pane, like if you just like click where you're at and hit Command F, it opens up this little search box. And so we could search for GitLab Basics. And there it is. So you can see how there's that line there that says, become familiar with how GitLab works. I would say let's change that to become familiar with the GitLab docs.
Okay.
We could even say with the GitLab documentation.
With GitLab. Documentation. And maybe instead of by learning our GitLab basics, by reading over or scanning?
By scanning the GitLab basics page.
And do I need to do it after the URL here? Because
exactly. In Markdown, that's the syntax for making a link is brackets and then parentheses.
I figured.
Yeah. And we can even say by scanning our GitLab basics page.
And in no way completing all of the tasks.
Right. We're going to say like, so you know the content that's available if you need to reference it later.
To gain an understanding, so you know, and
something like that, like
to gain an understanding of the content.
Yeah, to gain an understanding of what's there, so you can reference it later if you need to.
The available content for later reference.
For later reference.
Sorry, writing major.
I love it. I too was I actually was a literature major, but.
Literature minor. So let's see. Become familiar with GitLab documentation by scanning our GitLab. All right, I'm scrolling the wrong way. Basics page to gain an understanding of the available content for later reference.
So that's probably an improvement. That's better than what was there before. What was there is kind of set the expectation. I need to read and do all these things.
Yes.
But now this is more like, okay, this is a helpful link. I'll tuck it away, and if I need to go look at this stuff, I can.
Yeah, just add it to your pocket, but don't,
That's right. This step should be like, add this to your pocket or bookmark it. This step should not be like, spend a half a day doing all this stuff.
Which is exactly what I've done.
So with this little change, with this like 40-minute video we've made here right now, we're now saving like 5 hours of time or 4 hours of time for everyone else who joins GitLab.
Yes.
Like that's the high leverage work, I think. Okay, so
it's a good mindly, a restful day for you, you know.
It is. I got like my brain just conked out on me. So this is fun. This is fun for me. Okay. So we're gonna commit this change. So when you opened up the WebIDE, it made a branch for you, or it's going to make a branch for you. And so you can see on the left, there's that commit button. It's a little bit different layout than the one I used earlier. This is the web. There's an editor, which is more lightweight, and the WebIDE does more stuff. So
hit commit.
Yeah, so you're going to hit commit.
The merge request, but also commit it, right?
Right. It's not, nothing's going to happen yet, but when you hit the commit button, which is really funny, hitting a button called commit, you're not actually committing to anything yet. Yeah. It's just saying, would you like to make a commit? So you can see, again, you have like little staging area. You haven't gone on stage yet. And the staged changes, it's showing you what's in the red on the left is what it was before, and the green is what you changed it to.
And then I need to make the message something that we can reference so we know. And I can make it like William Chia made me do this.
We'll blame me in a moment. Let's make this like small and pithy so that in a list of things. So you might say
easier wording, less SSH.
We might call this one like clarify GitLab docs for non-developers.
Okay.
Something like that.
Clarify GitLab docs. I have to have no spaces, right?
In the commit message, you can write as you normally would. So with spaces and all that stuff.
Okay.
With a hyphen.
I was wondering, I was like, darn it, which way do I go? Thank you.
So before we can, actually, let me look at this. Okay, so we're going to create a new branch. You see it's already figured out for you. It's going to call it JL Parker Master Patch, which is, you can leave that name, that's fine. And you want to start a new merge request. And so you basically want to take all the defaults. And so when you hit that button that says stage and commit, it's going to take it off from the staging area. It's going to stage them, and it's going to commit it to that branch. And here's now your MR. Now in the description part, you're going to say at William Chia, made me make this MR. It's his fault. See you too. We'll link the video later. And then under that, actually maybe not up at the front, and I'll tell you why, because I think it's funny. But or you can totally keep that, or whatever. Basically, whatever you want to say there, you can totally keep it. I'm just going to suggest we put that at the bottom of the description.
Cool. Where's the home button on this thing? All right, I'm just going to click.
So in the top of the description, tell them why you're making that MR. Say something like, when I went through onboarding, just kind of your experience there.
What's it called again? Command, what do you call it?
Line.
Command line. Good.
No?
No,
that's good. And you could say, what could you say? Good. Going through ate up a lot of my page. Was that ate up a lot of my time?
I meant to say time, but it was hidden by the Zoom thing again.
Zoom, yeah. So I think we say ate up a lot of my time.
Thank you.
And turned out not to be particularly relevant. I might add after that paragraph, something like, here's a proposal, or I recommend, or I suggest. I think it would be more logical. That's great, to go through GitLab itself. So let's save this one for another issue. So essentially, we're making a very small change, and everything we talk about here is only related to this change.
So don't say this thing.
Right. So we're actually going to take that sentence and we'll put it in another issue where we'll address that. So this here, we're basically just giving a description to the person who's going to review this, to say, like, this is why I'm making this MR. And so if you add it underneath this, like another paragraph, and maybe just say something like, I recommend, I recommend messaging it this way. Wording it so that newbies or new hires don't feel compelled to complete all of the steps or whatever. Yeah, that's great. There we go. And so now you can say, yeah.
Now
BTW, William Chia made me make this MR.
Okay. Excellent.
Cool. So
assignee, who do I assign this to?
So
you.
We don't know yet, and I'll show you how to figure that out. So we're just going to scroll down and submit it. Oh, actually, look at that. So see those approvers there?
Oh, Trevor. These are all the people who are onboarding me. Yay, yeah. They love me. I haven't been annoying at all. Okay, so I'll assign it to Trevor then.
You know what? That's funny that Trevor is in here.
He's changing, right?
I think that's legacy. He actually as
I'll do Nadia.
Yeah, let's assign it to Nadia. He got a new role. It was really cool. I think he's well deserved. He's awesome.
I had my I-9 didn't come through properly. There was like an issue with my my driver's ID thing wasn't right. So I was like harassing him on Slack, like, what was wrong with this? And he seemed very happy.
Yeah, so we're just gonna submit the MR, and we might do a few more things after we submit it.
So no milestone, no labels, no dependencies. Nope. Do I ever have to worry about those?
Labels are helpful, but we can talk about those in another day. Okay. For this MR right now, you don't need any labels.
And do I do the delete and squash?
Always. Yep. There's
always delete and always squash.
Yeah. For the MRs that you make, there's no reason to ever not check those boxes.
Submit merge request.
Which is like anything to the website and anything to the handbook. So there you go. It's kicking off the pipeline now, and we assign it to Nadia. But let's scroll down to the comment section, and I always do this as well. I assign to somebody, and I like to ping them and say, "Hey, at Nadia, can you please review and merge this change if it looks good?" And then give it a question mark, and then underneath we're going to CC your other onboarders. And the way we do it is by literally just saying CC actually CC Colin too. Yeah.
I thought you, yeah.
So
do
Colin.
I use CC or do I just say at?
If you put in front of him, if you say CC, that basically lets him know like why he's getting tagged. It's basically like hey, I'm carbon copy. I'm sending you a notification on this thing. So we want to do Colin, and who else is part of your onboarding? There's probably somebody
Trevor and someone else.
I think in the little circles right at towards the top left of your screen.
Yeah, it's well, right now we're in this issue, so it's not the same, but it's
over. You see the green merge button?
I'm just gonna go to. I don't want to click. If I click away, will it appear?
No. Actually, what I was just gonna say is I think that they're already on the screen. So if you see right above that green merge button, there's like little circles there. View eligible approvers.
Oh, yeah, got it. Yeah. Oh yeah, sheesh. No, that's Trevor.
Right. So if you click on view eligible approvers.
Caroline, shoot, did I lose it?
You didn't. Actually, it's cool. You can go back.
Oh, nice. Caroline, Marina.
Caroline, and who else?
Cassiana Guggenau.
Have you? All of them have been helping you out.
I've spoken to Caroline on my issue with something. Like I added her, and I haven't done anything with Cassiana.
Okay, let's CC Cassiana then.
Or you mean the one I talked to? Or?
The one that you talked to. Sorry. whoever it is, you're just gonna also give her a heads up. And so so now if you comment that,
and they can also see where I blamed you, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's like 100% my fault.
Okay, sorry that I'm very concerned about that. It's just very important.
Actually, I'm puzzling on it now because I'm thinking to myself like, this is probably a very common thing and a common blocker to contribution, right? Yeah. So at GitLab, we want everyone to contribute, and we actually want more MRs, right? We want to accelerate how soon people make MRs, and we want people to make more of them. Like we want everyone to be like, actually, it's even a problem. A problem right now is that like not enough people make MRs, especially to the handbook. And the reason why is because of things like this. It's technically difficult. The tools are kind of challenging if you're not a developer or haven't like learned software development.
It's not just because I want to blame you. It was also because I didn't necessarily know how to do it, right, without you walking me through it. So.
Right. Yeah. There's like lack in training, lack in understanding the tools and software development in general. And then also another barrier might be just like, hey, I've never really been able to do this at any other job I've had. Is this copacetic?
A lot of jobs are like that. They say they have an open door policy and they want to hear from you, but when they do, it's kind of like, okay.
Right. Like William's telling me it's copacetic, but I don't yet believe him because I'm only on day 4.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still a little bit leery of just sort of like putting myself out there and being like, hey, this really messed with me. Therefore it's wrong.
So let me ask you this. Do you think, would it be helpful maybe for other new people if we ask them in the onboarding, hey, go and make a change somewhere, go and like help us?
Yes.
And
they also would like a video with a step-by-step process of how to do it before they're made.
Right. We'll get them the onboarding video, but on the particular blocker on kind of doubting whether you can do it or not,
definitely.
If we gave everybody like a blame buddy.
Yeah. Yes. That would
it's like basically
blame
like
your onboarding buddy. Yes.
Yeah, like talk to your onboarding buddy and ask them if you're really allowed to do this. Am I really allowed to do this?
Yeah.
And then we train onboarding buddies to basically say like, yes, like you can actually propose changes. We promise you won't get in trouble. In fact, we promise that you will be praised for this. You will be like, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's like my local high school. You're supposed to roll the high school. It's the senior prank. It's like you're supposed to. Like,
and you can blame me for it.
Blame me.
Have a blame. I need to think about that and propose an MR to like
merge requests for blame buddies.
yeah, like literally, like
I don't want mud in my eye. Let's put it on him.
Yeah. Well, if it helps you,
someone
if
on
it,
the hiring team,
right? Like if it helps you ramp faster, and
yeah, just blame Sid. It's fine. Kidding. Don't blame him.
Cool.
Don't blame him.
Well, I think we've done a good job. Look at this. You already have an MR, but with a one line change, in my opinion, I think this should get merged, and you are now saving 4 hours of everybody else who comes after you. Like,
so in your opinion, I should skip that step and go to the next step?
You should 100% add yourself to the team page. That is your next job, or next, I don't want to say, next task in the onboarding. And you should be able to do it 100% in GitLab the way you just did this.
And how do I see when this gets done? How can I monitor this merge request?
So there are notifications. What's that?
Yeah, I just allowed those, so okay.
So there's a couple different kinds. So the ones that you allowed are the browser notifications, like in Chrome. So when you scroll up a little bit in the pipeline part, you see how you got a check mark like, hey, your pipeline passed? What'll happen is if you have an MR open, when the pipeline passes, you'll get a little notification from Chrome, hey, your pipeline passed, or your pipeline failed. That's one type of notification, is a pipeline notifications. And then the other one is, you can see on the right there how like notifications is enabled. That's part of like on the right towards the bottom, there's like a little blue toggle.
Yeah, I see it. Okay. It was hidden by my Zoom again.
Oh yeah, the Zoom. So that's your global notifications. And we can actually configure those. If you go up to the very top right to your profile, the very, very top right, your picture, you click on that and you click on settings. And we're gonna go on the left to notifications about in the middle. And you can see receive notifications about your own activity. So, and your channel is gonna be jparker@gitlab.com. So if you check your email, you should have, so your global notification level is participate. You can basically tell GitLab, like if you click on participate, you can see the options. It's like, tell me about absolutely everything. Tell me about whatever. I like participate because that's like, hey, stuff that I participate in, send me an email. So what'll happen is you will get an email for this MR. And as there is changes on it, like you'll get an email when it's merged or when there's comments on it, that kind of stuff.
And can I also just come to merge requests and find it, like search for it?
Yes, you can. Yeah, exactly. Like if you type into the search filters there. So right now it's at the top, but eventually other MRs will stack on top of it. The last thing to know, and this is kind of what I skipped over, but hopefully now you have some context, is that this is in the people group in the employment project. So you can see there's a GitLab.com group, that's like the entire company. Then there's a people group, that's like all of what we used to call people ops. That's like all of Sung Hae's, like her whole org. And then in that group, then they have subgroups. They probably have like one for hiring and recruiting, and this one is for employment. And so this MR exists in that project.
And that's because we did it in the onboarding.
Right. It's because we went to this project. There's another project. There's a marketing group, and there are projects for different marketing functions. There's a project for the website. That one's called www.gitlab.com. So each project has its own set of MRs and its own set of issues.
Okay.
So
we'll be on our GitLab Unfiltered.
That's right. So I'm going to put this on GitLab Unfiltered, and you'd be surprised sometimes at what people watch. But you can also like link to various timestamps. Or in this case, I'm going to actually pop it in the MR, and it's going to say like, hey, see YouTube, and I'll put the link there.
Cool. So much.
Anything else on kind of this topic, or?
Not today. I'm sure at some point I'll have more questions, and I apologize in advance, and I'll try to not wear you out and ask other people too.
Cool. I'm also pretty good at when I have the bandwidth for this kind of thing. Like I said, today I had a good open chunk of time, and I was kind of brain dead.
Well, I appreciate it. It was very informative.
I'll push back or direct you to other folks. So
I appreciate it.
Enjoy your evening, and good luck with the team page, MR.
Thanks. Awesome.
Yeah. Cheers.